Welcome to a new episode of the Car Dealership Podcast, where this time I have as a guest Jacqui Barker of Keyloop. We talk about her career within automotive, within media, AutoTrader, Keyloop, and last but not least, her own Drive Time podcast. So it's a pleasure to have her as a guest. Let's head straight into this episode. Hi, Jacqui. Welcome to the Car Dealership Podcast.
Thanks very much for having me, Martin. Great to be here.
You're very welcome. So could you perhaps introduce yourself to the listeners? Can you tell a bit about your career journey and how you came to your current role at Keyloop?
I can. So I've been working in automotive a really long time, and I started my career in magazine publishing, actually, Martin. So
Okay.
it was interesting because I've got now like teenage kids, and I started as a rookie, so I was very in my late teens, early 20s, working on car magazines. And the magazine we worked on at the time was called Max Power, which was very bad car magazine, which is hilarious. I now have 3 boy petrol heads in my house, and but it was really great training. So early in career, brilliant training, understood how media worked, how marketing worked. And then I kind of stayed in automotive for most of my career. So I went through a number of different magazine launches, moved into B2B, learned a huge amount around fleet and remarketing and disposals and the whole fleet cycle. And then moved into technology. So I moved from the fleet magazine space into insight and understanding what drove satisfaction with customers. And then I went to work for AutoTrader as they moved from their print product into their digital product. And that sort of meant I was working with their team. The thing I brought was contacts, and the thing they brought was like digital expertise. And actually, the industry is still, as you know, going through this transition into online, like digital, and so you have online and in person. So it's trying to bring together those experiences, understanding how consumers behave online and how you can create a really good customer experience. So it's really interesting. I've talked a lot about my career being like always learning, and I've always been quite curious to see what's the latest trend, how can we understand how it works, how can we help retailers and OEMs lean into that trend and start to adopt those either new technologies or new methodologies into their businesses. So I was weirdly headhunted. I was sort of freelance for a long time. When my boys were smaller, I worked mainly in a different projects, which again gives you access to working with really interesting people, lots of startups or scale-ups. And I found myself working in e-commerce for an agency who were the early sort of iterators of online e-commerce for the OEM space, for the OEMs. So we built the early stores for Stellantis. And then I moved into Keyloop. I was headhunted to come and run their global team. And now my role is more of that, still educational, understanding how technology can impact your business. And I now have a bit of an evangelist role. I work in the strategy team at Keyloop, and we look at how do we bring in new products to market, but how do we help our customers adopt those products and different technologies into their businesses. So it's very much still online in store, but trying to focus on what customer experience you can deliver and the way that we can help to deliver that. So Keyloop historically was a DMS provider, so very much the systems that help retailers run their businesses, from ingesting stock, ingesting manufacturer data, running their accounts, running after sales departments. And we've repositioned what were a kind of scattergram of layered applications that were the result of many acquisitions and businesses, with a layer of partner and applications that also we work very closely with to accelerate how we bring technology to market. So we don't build everything ourselves. We also partner with third parties to accelerate some of those capabilities. So we work with startups and scale-ups to accelerate our own the way we deliver stuff. So it's a really interesting space, and no 2 days are the same. And I now run a podcast for Keyloop, which is also a way of helping us to educate that kind of audience about how do you bring tech into your business and how do you stay current with your digital knowledge. So it's a really interesting job, and I'm very grateful that I get to do the work that I do with the people that I work with. So it's interesting.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, nice. And but in your title, if I look at LinkedIn, your title is Global OEM Strategy Director. Does that mean that you focus mainly on the OEM part and less on the dealer groups?
Historically, yes. My background was very much OEMs because that was where the relationships were. But I think what's happening now more with the way that we work with Keyloop is how do you take the OEM vision and deliver that
Mm-hmm.
into, because it's the retailers that are having the one-to-one relationship with consumers, and they are delivering an
Yeah.
experience. So it's about how do you translate what you have from an OEM space into your retailer. And obviously we have global teams that work with that global OEM strategy. And
Mm-hmm.
each market will have a very unique and cultural way that they will deliver an experience within their market. And there's different taxations in different markets, and different countries have different rules, and whether it's emissions or whatever. So
Mm.
the way that we then deliver the global vision for our OEMs has to be adapted, localized, and then delivered within each of the within those NSC relationships, but working very closely with their franchise dealers. So it is
Mm-hmm.
historically a global OEM strategy, but then it's how you deliver that at a local level. So I think, and
Mm.
that's the bit where often we've seen experiences have been inconsistent across retailers, because the retailer themselves wants to deliver the retailer's experience as you would if you
Mm-hmm.
walked into any retailer, whether you shop in Lidl or Waitrose as we have in the UK, or you shop in a high-end department store, or you want to go for somewhere that has convenience. The retail experience is delivered by the retailer, and the products that sit on the shelves are from a manufacturer or a producer. So the
Yeah.
retail experience is the way that you connect with your customers. But yes, my job has mainly been with OEMs, but I think now it's about delivering the tech that allows an OEM to facilitate their strategy.
Yeah, exactly. But if you look at your background at AutoTrader, because that's also quite interesting. You mentioned AutoTrader and you mentioned always learning and
Yeah.
also transformation. So what has been the transformation that AutoTrader went through when you were there? What are the things that you learned in terms of classified websites?
Yeah, that was a great question. And actually, coming from print media, I worked for a company called Bauer Media, which is now a big European specialist press. They do like hobby press, and so we would do everything from motorcycling to bird watching to equestrian. But it was produced by enthusiasts for
Yeah,
enthusiasts. So you had a
yeah.
very focused market delivered by a team of like passionate journalists and editorial people. So when I remember the day when AutoTrader announced they were closing their print product, because the way that we monetized our business was copy sales of the magazine and also advertising
Mm-hmm.
revenue from those advertisers, whether you were selling cars or saddles or whatever, crash helmets.
Yeah.
Um, so they closed the print product, and we all kind of went, "Oh my god! Like, how are they going to make any money?" Because it was they all of the majority of AutoTrader was classified, but actually, when you then looked at what was
Mm-hmm.
an emerging site, was the IAB. So the IAB was the Internet Advertising Bureau, and they were tracking the way that sites were monetizing in the dot-com bubble. You could see huge kind of sites. Amazon was very early in its iteration, and AutoTrader could see that they had 40 different regional offices, and they would employ photographers to go and take pictures of your car. And you would have a
Mm-hmm.
little black and white listing. We would sell classified ads in the back of the mag, when people always go to classifieds, they go to marketplaces when they're ready to buy. Marketplaces had
Mm-hmm.
moved online. And I think Auto Trader could obviously see that. So they worked with a company called ThoughtWorks. They closed their regional offices. They went from 40 buildings down to 2, and they modeled their business on Spotify, where they had
Yeah.
digital squads and tribes, and they moved
Yeah.
from print into digital products. So the products would be, how do we enable the advertising experience to be better? So if you're a consumer and you're browsing, you're not searching in the back of many pages to look for a tiny advert. What you can do is use your mobile phone and search by postcode, by price, by a number of different search terms, and the search results are much faster. So they were seeing longer engagement. They were able to track consumer behavior. And the role that I did was then looking at how could we help OEMs understand and unlock that audience of shoppers and buyers who were looking for their next vehicle, not necessarily a new vehicle. So they'd go new car, next car. It wasn't new or used, it was your next vehicle. And that was led by things like what your budget was based on, and how you were kind of finding those products in a more affordable way. So I think the thing that I learned more than anything was we learned what the word agile meant. I'd never heard that before. We learned
Mm-hmm.
about digital product iteration, and I was fortunate that I then pulled together these steercos of OEMs to understand how you would build out your digital marketplace presence, for example. So manufacturers were still spending a lot of their money on large format, very creative, beautiful advertising in cinema or TV. But of course, you've got a screen. You can then take stills of that creative and deliver it in a way that's going to find a consumer when they're browsing. So what we were seeing at the time was TV would drive up search behavior, and we could actually map when an episode of Top Gear had aired on the television. And you could see, because people were still watching TV on a scheduled time, whereas now we're all streaming, we're all watching Netflix when we want, everything is on demand. But you could literally see if a car had been featured on Top Gear, which is universally known now, you would see a spike in that search on AutoTrader within the hour. So you could really pinpoint what was driving consumer behavior online, and then what would drive a conversion online. So we started to see what was the throughput of traffic from the marketplace listings into the dealer's website. So at the same time, people like G-Forces were building templated websites because retailers needed a website solution where they would then drive this traffic to land. And then, in the UK, it was kind of called G-Forces, which became ATG, which of course we then acquired last year. So we've kind of added on all of these different capabilities into our own ecosystem. But within the AutoTrader time, Nick King and I were doing the education of, here's how consumers are buying, and this is how you can find them online, and how you can start to engage with that spend and that traffic rather than spending all of your money in cinema. Activate that spend when they come in to shop and buy. And this is where the traffic was going. So the IAB talked about paid, owned, and earned media. So you're paying for, I'm going to put my advert somewhere else. I'm earning, I'm going to get you to come to my site. And earned is when you have your own native space and people come to you. So it was a really good way to understand how that digital footprint was moving from traditional print media or TV or outdoor into this really rapidly expanding digital space, which when you look back, I think you can do a thing, Martin, where you can do like a look back on websites back in the day, and it shows you how they've changed. But you don't change it all overnight. You would just like constantly make these little changes. And that's what agile development means, that you're constantly making an improvement and you're learning, and then you're making another improvement and then you learn again. So it was a really great way to learn how digital products were being built and developed, and how we would then work with consumer groups and user groups like OEMs, retailers, to develop them with those partners and with those users of our sites. So it was incredibly exciting time to move into digital. So I'm very lucky that the universe kind of worked in that way for me, and I had the opportunity to go and work with them. When I was still freelancing, I was kind of contracting at the time. So it was a great way to step in and test something and learn about it.
We can imagine. So, and if you now look at you have now also a lot of experience with Keyloop and also the AutoTrader and Bauer Media before.
Yeah.
So, what is the most transformative moment for you?
Oh gosh, I think my biggest learning curve was coming to Keyloop, because I just was like, I'd never worked in the systems space before. I'd always worked in the marketing space before. And I remember coming in, I joined the alliances team as it was at the time, and we were OEMs, like global OEMs partners. And and we also kind of had our technical account manager team, so we would deliver all of these big global projects. I was thinking, why have you hired me? Because I don't know anything about DMSs. I'd no idea. I'd never run a global team because I'd been freelancing, and I'd managed these different projects and got involved with some great stuff. And the boss that hired me, a lady called Harvey, I think she saw something in me, which was, she's got great contacts and you can teach the rest, and which is an ethos I've always held myself. You hire attitude and you train skill. So I think if you hire enthusiasm and a hunger for learning, that person will learn. And so I kind of came in completely open-minded, but there was an amazing team of people that delivered some incredible, they would deliver the products. You don't need to have, I think there's a myth that you need to know how to code or you need to know how to write technical products. You don't. I think when you're going into a technology business, is understanding the application of that technology and how you then use it in that has a good purpose. So so I think that was, we always used to joke about when you start on your job, your learning curve looks a little bit like that. And my Keyloop one was a bit
Mm.
like that. And it's just like, whoa, what do all these 3-letter acronyms stand for? Because there were so many of them.
Yeah.
So what's also been really interesting, Martin, is that the business is totally different to the business I joined 3 years ago because it never sits still.
Yeah.
We're private equity backed. We keep acquiring businesses and we're filling in the tech gaps. So you
Yeah.
wait 5 minutes and it will all change again. And so we do kind of have a very agile business that keeps changing and keeps evolving because our partner ecosystem is constantly changing. The businesses that we've
Yeah.
acquired have been really sort of transitional to the way that we operate and have taken us into
Yeah.
a kind of almost an entirely new category. So we don't just talk
Mm.
about the DMS space, but it's literally how do you run a whole customer journey through everything from building loyalty in the brand experience in the after sales space.
Mm.
How do you kind of build that retention based on what you know about me when you have me? And then so it's been really interesting. How do we start to understand how like single view of inventory could transform the way that stock is viewed in real time across multiple platforms, and all of that sits within the possibilities that we can now deliver. So I think the other big thing as well is that like technology is it takes a long time to build some tech. It's just takes
Mm.
time to change these things. And so
Yeah.
I think there's been a huge amount of learning in just how long some of these projects take to build and deliver, and the fact that we're doing it multiple times in multiple markets. So it's a big
Mm.
old beast of a thing when you're running a tech
Mm.
company. It's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's been
Makes sense. Yeah.
but I think that I suppose AutoTrader was that big shift from print to digital, and then Keyloop has been the shift from digital marketing into tech and into SaaS, so software as a service. Is the kind of the new
Mm.
thing, and I think now we're seeing, and you work in the AI space, Martin, so you know this all too well. That AI is only accelerating the way that technology is being built and delivered. So we're seeing
Yeah.
it feels like there have been some seismic shifts and they kind of come every 5 to 7 years. And this is one of them. We're
Yeah.
kind of in the middle of the next one. And I think it'll be really
Mm.
interesting to see what comes next because none of us knew this was coming 7 years ago, apart from
No.
OpenAI,
No.
who of course are building it.
Yeah.
But so I think those have been, in terms of career or learning, you just have to keep the most open of minds to see what's coming and how and what that means for you and what that means for your business or what that means for your customers. And how do you start to
Yes.
bring that into your business in a way that will make the difference to you and how you run your business, whether it's driving efficiency or driving up experience. And those are the two metrics I think we look at is, are we doing something that saves you time or money? Or are we doing something that really moves the needle in the way that you work with your customers, our customers, or where we are focusing our
Mm.
attention now? Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned that you worked through the dot-com bubble. Now we're talking about AI and how it's transforming. Do you believe we are in an AI bubble?
Hey, before we hop back into this conversation with Martin, imagine an AI communication layer seamlessly connected to your dealership systems. One intelligent platform that gives both your customers and your team instant access to the right information at the right time. Well, that's Nova Co., short for the Nova Company. At its heart is Nova, the AI model behind it all, inspired by the Nova Star. Bright when needed, invisible when not, just like a good assistant. On your website, Nova appears as the Orb, a glowing, breathing chat bubble that invites customers to ask anything, anytime. But Nova is more than a website assistant. You see, with Nova Companion, she supports your team internally, answering questions using brochures, price lists, stock data, and more. Just instant answers for your team, saving them time and helping them focus on the customer. And with Nova Messaging, she connects with customers on WhatsApp and other channels, managing service updates, follow-ups, and appointment reminders, all in one professional flow. It's pretty cool. And yes, Nova Voice is coming soon, bringing the same intelligence to your phone system and completing the omni-channel experience. You see, customer communication is evolving, but with Nova Co., you're not just adapting, you're setting the pace. Find out more at novaco.ai, that's novaco.ai, and experience what's next. All right, let's get back to Martin.
think we are. I think there's a couple of bubbles that we're in. I think, Martin. I think there's the EV bubble, and there's a lot of new entrants. So we hear an awful lot of. And I'm lucky I get to work in a global role. So I work with markets in Canada, in South Africa, across Europe, and we also have a big business in APAC and the Middle East. So you see, it's almost like we talked before the call. You've got younger kids, I've got older kids. The markets themselves are at a different family life stage. OEMs are at a different family life stage. Some have got very mature brands, some have got newborns, and you start to see how those products are being brought to market. I think innovation takes investment and it takes courage. And what we've seen is, like 20 years ago when I was freelancing, there was an awful lot of investment in battery production in China, and that has now come to fruition. But that investment and innovation started 20 years ago. You can see what's coming. You've got to sometimes have there was a program called Tomorrow's World when I was growing up, and it was this like sciencey. It was great for kids, but the Tomorrow's World was, you go, we're going to be sleeping in a dome, there won't be quilt. There'll be like all this really bizarre, we're flying in space. So it's what's the art of the crazy possible, and which of that will actually come to fruition. So I think the EV bubble, we're going to see a lot of brands that don't necessarily stick around. There will be some brands that will. And also the way that we're going to see improvement and efficiency in the way that batteries are used in vehicles, and the way the materials that are used in those vehicles to provide sustainable futures and sustainable mobility, that will change. I think the goal will be the same, but the way that we get there will change as technology advances. And it's the same with AI. You're going to see, all you have to do is walk around. There's an event called Move 25 this year. They've got it in several countries. You walk around the startup hall. There are a load of startups. Not all of them are going to survive. Some of them will maybe mix with other startups. Some will scale. Some will be acquired. But the goals are the same. It's how do you provide mobility as a future? How do we provide AI that allows you as a human? I interviewed Wana Beatty from Kyndryl, and she said AI should be in the service of humans. And I think we worry that the AI will just take over the world. But at some point, there is some incredible technology that's doing an awful lot of the thinking for the humans. So you worry that we're all going to atrophy our brains. Nobody remembers a phone number anymore because the machine remembers it for you. So I think the bubble that we're going to see, we'll see in any tech, there will be early adopters who will really kind of take on that technology. And then you'll see the tipping point when the large majority will start to take it on. I think you're going to see a difference. What we need to see probably, Martin, is the way that we educate young people in the next generation in education doesn't need to be a memory test anymore. It needs to be how does your problem solving work? I think we're maybe training for the wrong thing when it comes through the main schools. Yes, we need to read and write and decode language. That's one thing. But it's how you then use your questioning to unlock the potential of knowledge that's stored in the machine currently. It doesn't have to necessarily be stored in your brain. You just need to know how to get to it. That makes sense.
But it's true that if you look at you say something important here. I read a lot about AI, of course, and then people say, it makes people lazy, and they don't use their brain anymore. And I think but cycling is easier than walking. It just gets you there quicker, but you still need to do something. It's the same with AI. You still need to do something and give it instructions and ask questions. But it's true that for many things where you need some help, you don't need to call the specialist. Can you come over and help? You can actually just ask the ChatGPT in a way and say, I've got this problem. How do I solve that? Oh, you should solve it like that. Oh, okay, well, I'll give it a try. And I've learned something.
Yes.
And I see it with my kids as well. So even my oldest is actually 7 years old. And but sometimes when we have something, she says, can you ask ChatGPT how I need to do that? Then I said, okay, I'll ask it. And then I say, oh, you need to do this and that. Oh, but she learned something, and it's actually that knowledge was not there before.
Yeah.
So that means actually you learn less.
Yeah.
So everything has got its pros and cons, but I think that actually it's quite interesting that you have such a handy solution that knows a lot and is emotional, and also the IQ is enormous, and it actually enables so much for you.
I think you see how children, and it's beautiful when you see how children learn and how they are They're natural problem solvers. They learn to stand up. They can't stand up. They fall over. They hold onto the sofa. They start to cruise along furniture. So I think you're going to still see children learning to read with a book, because you turn the pages and it's a tactile experience. So, when they're little, they kind of have those little furry things or scrunchy things, or they have an experience that has a memory. And so I think that's going to carry on. But I think you're absolutely right. I have a conversation with ChatGPT. I write my prompts that are incredibly detailed, and the quality of the prompt will kind of blend in with the quality of my response. And of course, you're going to have to fact check what's coming back at you. But it's a really interesting way to kind of get your problem-solving brain reignited. And all of my kids love Lego, so they would sit and solve a Lego problem because it's three-dimensional, and they were much more problem-solving in that way, or kind of following the process, than sitting down, being still, listening to a teacher talking at them. So I think we're going to see probably different ways. The other thing as well that I think is really important, even though we have AI, the human-to-human interaction, and we're seeing a lot more of this now coming out in like podcasts and the way we connect, we actually connect. We have, as a human tribal being, we kind of crave that connection. And I think that's why we haven't seen retailers disappear altogether, because as humans, you still want to go into a place, physically touch the product and speak to a human. There is a kind of fundamental human need to build trust. There are some key moments. That was one of the things that we actually learned when I was at Summit, which is the e-commerce agency. We did a study with a team of psychologists to understand what were the moments that mattered in the automotive space, in the retail space. And it was kind of born out of Google moments. So Google moments were, I want to find, I want to try, I want to buy, whatever those I want to moments were. And it's the same. So the human moments are still the same, and the goal is the same. It's the way that we get to it, and the execution of it changes as technology evolves. So, the work that you do with kind of AI assisted chat, it's just doing the work of the human while the human's doing something else. So it allows you as a human to speak to me when I'm ready to speak to you, because the AI has done that. It's found the stock, or it's helped me, it's nurtured it while I'm busy. It's brilliant. Having an assistant that does the work while you're busy doing something else is just, we all need a multitasking help. It's perfect.
Absolutely. It's also how I look at it. Yeah. So indeed, and Keyloop and Novaco are now also collaborating, which is great. So how does that? It's one of the collaborations. You have many more as well, as you mentioned in the introduction, that you have your own suite, and you also collaborate with startups and innovators to make your own product better. But how does it fit to the broader strategy to support dealers and OEMs? These kind of corporations.
What we've seen is, because of the work that we do and the way that we sit within the kind of core fundamental management system of a retailer, it's enhancing the capability of the core functionality that we provide already. And it means that we can go faster, because engineering resource is not infinite. We don't have the engineering resource to do everything. And then also those kind of incubation labs that you want to make sure that you have. And that's where I think startups are a really agile, rich resource for us. And the partner ecosystem means that the partners certify to have access to that system, so the data can be written directly into the dealer management system. And again, that's something I learned when I joined this business, is that certifying in our systems means that you can access the data in a way that's protected. So you're working with we have shared customers, we have shared access to data, but we do it in a secure and certified way. But it means that you then accelerate the capabilities to help the retailers deliver better customer experience, and you're not slowing yourself down. So it also, ultimately, if you have, like, your mobile phone is a really good way of doing this. So all of my phones, I'm very wedded now to Apple. It would make it very difficult for me to unstick myself from Apple. My life is on my phone. All of my applications sit within that. So while the hardware is the phone, the software is the thing that I'm actually very hooked into, and it's no different for our system. So these applications, we provide the software. You've got the laptop that you buy, that's your hardware, and everything else that you plug into it means that your system works and it all connects up. So it makes us as a business more stickier. It also means that our partners have access to a richer customer base, and those customers have access to more functionality within that. But you can just choose the applications that you need to make your business run in the way you want it to. So you have applications on your phone, whether it's fitness or tickets or your banking, all of those things are sitting within your systems, and those applications are being developed independently of your phone, but they kind of upgrade on your phone. And that's the way that
they come together.
Absolutely. But it kind of makes your life easier. That's why we use them. So, and we Apple Pay now, or we can use a watch, or you can do whatever. But all of those systems are connected and they integrate. So it's just how we then expect life to be as humans. So we've got to...
Of course. Yeah. So if you look at it as a leader, so how do you inspire teams personally to embrace change like this and also to embrace innovation?
I think what's really, and the way that you hire great people and you let them shine. That's the way that I've always done it. I've never micromanaged any of the team that worked for me, because everybody has their own unique style and they're all good at the jobs that they do. So the most important thing that you can do as a leader is that you enable them to be their authentic self. You can't, I've worked with people before where they wanted me to be a version of them, and you go, that just doesn't work, because
you are you.
You're the you that you are.
Yeah.
So I think when you hire other people, it's really important to allow those people to play to their strengths, and then support them in the areas that maybe they're not quite so strong on. And everybody will bring a unique set of skills and experiences to your team, and actually empowering that, hire people that are going to be better than you, because that makes your life so much easier. I do hear, as you know, I'm very lucky. It was announced last week that I've been shortlisted for the Reuters Drive Honours Empowering Women Award, and it's a passion of mine is to try and drive diversity and actually bring diversity of thought, because women are customers in this industry, and there's a really it's a painful stereotype that women don't feel comfortable in car showrooms. I actually do. I'm very lucky that I have my local dealership is great, and it's very Scandinavian. It's very nice. I can work from there while my car is serviced. But it's transformed from how it used to be. It's a much better experience. Yeah. But women, if we have more representation within our industry, so please, if your audience are listening, try and look around your showrooms and see how many women you hire. And then also, when you're thinking about the way that you advertise those jobs, often women don't apply for jobs in automotive retail, but they will apply for jobs in retail, and it's a really sexy product. So I think if we can try and harness into younger people, more women, just different people in your showrooms representing the brands that we are so lucky to sort of be involved with, that would be great. So hire great people, let them do great work, and then your business will be successful. You don't sort of squish them and try and make them new, because that doesn't work.
Of course, it's impossible. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that's good advice. So also you have your own podcast, Drive Time.
Yes, yeah, we do.
Can you talk a bit about that? So what inspired you to start that?
It was when you try and find out information. So coming into Keyloop, huge amount of product knowledge, very steep learning curve. And I was then, once I kind of got my brain around our own product and our own ecosystem, and I was talking to retailers about it and how technology will make their businesses different, you could sort of see that a lot of people go, I just don't get it. And actually, when you look at the numbers of systems that retailers have within their businesses to try and solve those little problems and workarounds, and actually you could save a huge amount of money and time just by unlocking the potential of each of your systems. I wouldn't have an Apple phone and an Android phone. I just try and make sure that my Apple phone does what it needs to do, my iPhone does what it needs to do. So it felt like there was a huge amount of knowledge around automotive in the automotive space, in the automotive retail and OEM space, but technology was something that we as an industry were having to outsource. And because there wasn't the native skill in our businesses to be able to not only, we can't sort of, even just like building websites and making them better, how do you get your stock inventory updated and how can you automate some of those things? These are skills that we don't have as an industry. So partly it's, you need to know what good looks like, and you need to know how to have an informed conversation with a supplier if you're not the technical person. You need to know how to have an informed conversation with your technical person if you're not a technical person, and actually start to just upskill the industry in terms of digital and technology and what's coming, and make it language friendly, because when you speak to tech people, they are speaking in a very, I interviewed Andy Gray from Cortical, and when you look at his website, he's talking to CIOs and CTOs. And I said to him, you're super technical. You're so technical. He's talking about algorithmic trading I don't know how to build an algorithmic trading engine, or I'm, trying to educate my children about how do you save for your future, not algorithmic trading. So technical. And you think, well, what does that mean for our business? And actually what they're doing in our partner ecosystem is accelerating the way that we can automate retention. So they're using a finance tool that was built for trading and banking, and we're using that application in Automotive to drive automated retention. So when I go in and have my service, how will that then trigger my next vehicle? What's the optimum time to target me as a consumer into my next vehicle?
Yeah.
And then how do you layer on things like AI assisted chat? So it's searching for the right information. So all of these applications can talk to each other. And it's if we can help, if the podcast stimulates some of those, I don't know enough about that and I want to learn more, then go and learn more. And it hopefully will help you find out more information so that you as a human are more informed about what's possible in your business with technology and how you can start to work with suppliers to bring that newer thinking in. So that was the reason for doing it. It's how can we try and make technology a lot more accessible in the automotive space, so you know what good looks like, and you can start to then source the right kind of tech in your own business, but also question what you've already got. Look under the hood of your own business and go, why do we have all these systems and what do they do? So spend a bit of time workshopping with your own people what each of your systems does and how much do you really need, and how do you almost, if you were to have a blank piece of paper, what would you sketch out as your customer journey? And we have people like solution architects, which most automotive data principals have got. I'm not a solution architect. Of course you're not, but you can start to look at what systems are you paying for and what do those systems do. And even if it's just, I'm going to whiteboard out, I'm going to take some time and work with my tech suppliers, all of them collectively, and look at who's doing what and how do I streamline that and make it more connected, more efficient, and better for my customers. That I think that's what the podcast was designed for, to kind of just get the conversation going.
So, sounds good. Yeah. So if you look at the guests you've had so far and the guests you'll have in the future, if you could invite any guest in the world, inside or outside the automotive industry, who would be on top of your list?
Oh gosh, well, that's a really good question. I hadn't thought. So we want to get some of the motorsport people in actually to talk about, because I think motorsport again is a test bed for what's coming in terms of in-vehicle technology. We haven't done the in-vehicle tech yet. So that's on the list of things to do. And what I mean, again, when I was at Move, I walked around the floor and I spoke to some really interesting suppliers around connected vehicle data and how you can start to automate things like servicing or charging or optimizing certain things, and how consumers can start to have access to that data. So that's really, really cool and interesting. And then in the past, we've spoken to Google. We've had some, we've had Cortical on. We've got you coming on in a couple of weeks, which would be great. We can start to talk about what's going on with AI. So we've had a whole series around AI and what's going on in that space. And then, yes, I think motorsport is great because that's quite sexy and fun. We haven't done any celebrity type people yet on the podcast. It's been very much technical and who's doing what. I have got a celebrity lined up in the motorsport space, so I'll keep that under wraps for now. But we've got a couple lined up, and then years ago I did meet Clarkson, but he's gone into farming now. So Jeremy was he's great. But one of the jobs I did was we worked in the launch of Evo, and before Evo was performance car, and Jeremy Clarkson used to write a column in the back of performance car. So we had this startup invite everyone to a launch party, and we blagged this brilliant launch party. And Clarkson came along because he knew the editorial team, because they all used to work together. So it was really good fun. And I've asked Harry Metcalf as well. Harry's on my list of people because he again has Harry's Garage and was the founder of Evo. So I was lucky enough to work with Harry when I was in my 20s in that startup. So I think it's just, a thing to your listeners actually is, what do you want to hear? It's great to kind of get guests on, but what you want to do is have guests that are useful and provide that informative content for people in automotive that maybe don't have access to that information, because it doesn't seem to be widely available anywhere in one place. There's lots of different podcasts, but it's like, how do you find the stuff that will help you to do your job?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, enough interesting guests to invite. So it sounds great. All the best to you also. And perhaps finally, on a last question on a lighter note, if you could buy any car today, purely for yourself, what would it be?
Got to be a Porsche 911.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
So my boys are my boys keep kind of joking about Porsche, and then Porsche kept coming up on the podcast. I was like, we need to maybe get Porsche to just send me something. And the first time I drove one, as John, I was married to John, who's the journalist on Evo. He would bring vehicles home, and I've driven everything because he would just bring home and go, take that out, and you'd drive everything. So I was very lucky to drive F-Type when it was just coming off the production line, because he worked in the development of that.
Yes.
And Audi R8s. I did the nursery run in an Audi R8 one time. It's just hilarious. So I've driven, but because we used to get so many press cars coming all the time, you don't, they're never yours. So you don't, you're never going to live with this thing. I do drive, I've got a big Volvo at the minute, which I'm a Volvo fan. I'm on my 4th Volvo at the moment, and I'm very happy with it. So I've got the XC90 with the blonde interior. Love it. And it is a beautiful car, but for midlife crisis, I think I need to maybe get a Porsche 911, and my boys would be made up if I got one of those. But the second time you drive it, the first time you drive it doesn't feel right. Second time you feel like you've gotten into something that feels like it fits you. So yeah, at the moment I've still got, my youngest child is now past his driving test, so I don't really need to do any more school runs. They can drive themselves.
No.
So
I would say we have also an XC90 as a family car.
Yeah,
and it's ideal.
It's
7-seater. It's I think it's at the moment also wiser than a 911. But one day
I can't get my dogs in the back of a Porsche, but I can get them in the back of a...
Yeah, exactly. Well, but it was a good answer to that question.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So
Thank you.
If people want to follow you or get in touch or follow the podcast, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, hopefully you'll put a link in, but the Drive Time podcast by Keyloop, if you have a look for the Drive Time podcast, you'll find us. It's got a little blue logo and it's got like a little kind of circle. And then you can follow me on LinkedIn, and I sort of post updates of when the podcasts are coming out on LinkedIn, and also other events that we kind of get involved with. So we've got a few sort of launch events going on. We've got a bit of a world tour at the minute. We're due to go to Canada, Dubai, the Netherlands. The other team we're going to Italy, but it's in Italian. Sadly, I don't speak Italian fluently. So we've got a few kind of cool events going on between now and the end of the year, and then we're planning into next year. So the other thing as well that we'd love to do is bring the podcast sort of to events, or go and speak with dealer councils and help them to learn what it is you need in your content. So we're more than happy to come along and speak to members of dealer councils and just see how we can make sure the podcast stays as current as you need it to be, and has the content that will help you to do your jobs. So yeah, follow me on LinkedIn by all means, and then you can tune in on the podcast on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Exactly. Well, perfect. Well, thank you very much. Nice to have you as a guest on this podcast, and we'll definitely send the listeners to your podcast as well. So thank you very much for today.
Thanks so much, Martin, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye, Jacqui.